This is Wildcat Chris Harris, one half of America's Most Wanted.
Fallen Angel Christopher Daniels.
Trey Miguel.
Tom Hannafin from Impact Wrestling.
Hey, Impact Wrestling President Scott D'Amore.
The Draw the Death Machine, Sami Callihan.
This is PCO.
Alan Angels from The Design.
One half of the Impact World Tag Team Champions, Chris Bay.
Steve Macklin.
The virtuosa Deonna Purrazzo.
This is your Impact Knockouts World Champion, Mickie James.
Jordan Grace.
This is Gail Kim, Impact Hall of Famer.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is David Penzer, former WCW and Impact ring announcer, and you are listening to Count It Out with Mike and Tyler.
Well, we are live, pals, and welcome to another edition of the Bill Apter Seal of Approved Count It Out with Mike and Tyler. My name is Tyler. Mike is not able to join this week, and a little bit of a different show we're going to do for you this week. You know, normally every week we come out here and we say this is the Bill Apter Seal of Approved Count It Out with Mike and Tyler. Well, this week it is the Impact Wrestling Seal of Approved Count It Out with Mike and Tyler. I've been under the weather all week. Mike is also under the weather, so we just couldn't line up to get a normal show out. But I thought this would be a fun time to go back and take a look at some of our greatest moments with Impact Wrestling talent. We kind of want to go full circle here. Impact Wrestling's 1000th episode of Impact TV is this week, the part 2 of it. And I just thought, you know, Impact Wrestling's been such a huge part of giving our show credibility. Ooh, see that, Mike? That was for you. We are very, very proud to be a member of Impact Wrestling's media team. We've gotten some fantastic interviews from some of the top stars, and I'm not going to say just Impact Wrestling, but in all of wrestling. And we're going to go back and relive some of my favorite moments from the last 2, almost 3 years of doing media work with Impact Wrestling. We're going to hear maybe some of our press passes that we've done. We're going to hear some clips from some of the interviews that we've done. We're going to hear all about the Knockouts division. We're going to focus in on Josh Alexander. We're going to focus on Violent by Design, all kinds of fun stuff. We're going to hear from fantastic names like Chris Bay, Steve Macklin, the champ himself, Alex Shelley, Josh Alexander. Just fantastic stuff. Want to send a big thank you to Adam Content, who's been a big help with our Impact Wrestling media. Big thank you to Ross Foreman, who has, given us our biggest break. And it's something that we cannot put into words how appreciative we are for that. So I thought this would be a great week. Having to stop blabbing, we're going to get to some of the best moments and biggest names that we've talked to from Impact Wrestling. So sit back and enjoy, and congratulations, Impact Wrestling, on 1,000 episodes. What an incredible feat.
So if we could, Chris, can we go back in time a little bit here? And I can actually see right over your shoulder there's a picture of yourself and it looks like Bob Ryder there. And Bob is somebody I definitely want to ask you about. How important was Bob, not only for you and your career, but also for the company as a whole? Because I really think he's probably the biggest unsung hero of TNA and Impact Wrestling.
Yeah, Bob really doesn't get enough credit for everything he's done for the promotion and even coming up with it. I mean, he helped. He helped create TNA. It was a brainchild of his, and then they got with Jeff Jarrett and they came up with it. And then, Storm and I were there since day one, and Bob was probably our biggest supporter. I think they would have wound up using us, which they did, but they just didn't know what direction they wanted to go or what to do with us. And Bob was one of the guys that, or the guy that said, you got to do something with these guys, take a look at them. And they could really be something big. So, and then over the years, I mean, Bob's, outside of the ring, Bob's become one of my best friends, and he's always been there for us. whether it's the business or outside of the business. So we're going to miss him a lot.
Up next is Tyler from Count It Out in Canada. I love Count It Out. What's going on, man?
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good. Good to see you again.
Dom, good to see you again. Frankie, thank you for taking my question.
Sure.
So Frankie, I got to ask you, you are one of the most decorated superstars in Impact Wrestling history. When you look back at everything you've done, do you have a couple moments that stand out for you as something special? And when you look at this roster now, is there a couple people that are standing out to you that you can't wait to get in the ring with?
Yeah, I mean, like, there's so many firsts for me. My very first run at Impact, like, being involved in the first ever Ultimate X match was huge, especially to see what that match has become. To be a guy that was one of the first 3 guys in that match is very special. Winning my first X Division title, that was my first major title, and to win it live on pay-per-view was very special. Winning the tag team titles with Christopher Daniels the first time was amazing. There's so many firsts, like being, the first time we got on Fox Sports Net, the first time we got on Spike, the first time we were on Primetime. All those memories are very, very special to me. And in terms of people I want to wrestle on the roster, literally, I want to wrestle with everybody. I mean, there's so many intriguing matchups. I mean, like, you look at a guy like Eddie Edwards, who I've known for 15 plus years, never been in the ring with him in a singles match. The same can be said with a guy like Rich Swann. Again, going back to like 2 of my favorite guys on the roster, Josh Alexander and Speedball Mike Bailey. Just top to bottom, there's so many incredibly talented guys. And now that I am here full time, I want to get in there with everybody, like literally everybody on the roster.
So thank you so much, guys. Can't wait to see you guys back in Canada soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Yeah, very soon, March and April, we're going to be back.
Let's talk about LAX. Incredible stuff. You, Conan, Hernandez, you guys just had such a different vibe going than anything in wrestling at that time. Where's the brainchild behind that, and who kind of put all that together?
Oh, it was more like Conan's the brainchild and I'm the enforcer. Meaning like we want LAX to be a family, the way the Horseman was. And I remember it was me and Apollo. And Apollo had difficulty times on his flights. So it brings somebody named Machete. His name is Ricky Vega, a Florida wrestler from the Independence. And I think the bosses didn't like him because we were the same height. They want somebody like the Twin Towers. They want Apollo and Hernandez. And Connor's like, nope, I'm telling you, Homicide's the one, the realest person. I need Homicide. I said, okay, let's make it more like the Hart Foundation. Let's put Hernandez and Homicide. And the first time I saw Hernandez, we just clicked. Boom. We just clicked. Until about like, he was a pretty boy, and I changed him up. I told him, what's your favorite movie? He said, I like prison movies. All right, you're going to watch American Me and Blood and Blood Out. Look at him right now. So we had a phenomenal time. A lot of people don't know we are the first Latinos NWA Tag Team Champions.
Wow.
We did a lot of history, man. We did so much good, and we're not finished because we all going to unite. We all going to do a little tour. But Connor was the brainchild, and after that, I took over. And the rules is, when it's like a rule again. Like, you with us, you leave us, then something's going to happen to you.
To me, I haven't seen a lot of better tag team matches than LAX against AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels. Those matches, do you think that they kind of establish LAX as a force, like, going forward? Like, what do you remember about working with those guys?
I think it was more like the people saw it and they were like, oh my God, these guys are like legit, because Chris Daniels and AJ Styles, man, at the time, man, it's one of those, they're going to have a bright future. And look at them right now. They're future Hall of Famers. But when we wrestled them, they put LAX in the map because it was one of those like, man, these guys are legit. They're part of something and we want to see more. So I got to thank AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels about that because, man, definitely. Those guys, they put LAX in the map, especially me and Hernandez.
So obviously we cannot talk about America's Most Wanted and not bring up Triple X. You guys had some incredible tag matches, and one that still gets talked about to this day was Inside the Steel Cage. What are some of your memories about that cage match? Could you tell that you guys were in the middle of doing something special as it was going on? And whose idea was it? And what were you thinking watching Elix Skipper walk across, getting ready to hit you with that Hurricane Rana? Because that was crazy.
I remember thinking this is going to hurt. Well, the thing is, people bring up the cage match, and I know they're talking about the six sides of steel, but a lot of people forget that we had the first cage match with them back in the Nashville days, in the Asylum days. We had a cage match with them. So, and that match by far was one of our favorites up until that point, and it got a lot of attention. So when the rematch was coming about, it's really hard to try not to top it, but we knew going into it, that was a hard feat to try to top it. But I think we did. We pulled out all the stops. I love that match. I still watch it today. It was a bloodbath for one. But when Elix first brought that up to me, I thought it was just so dangerous that all day I was kind of going against it. And we talked about it a few different times, but then as the day progressed, later on in the day, I went up to him and I said, "Are you sure you can pull this off?" And he had all the confidence in the world. He said, "Absolutely." I said, all right, let's do it. And then if you watch it, it looked like he struggled a little bit to get to the top. And I'm talking to Daniels, and I'm like, "Okay, what are we going to do for Plan B?" And next thing I know, though, his legs were around me, and here
that brings up a question right there. As a professional, like myself, like I can't fathom it. I'm not a professional. I'm not in there. For a guy who's done this his entire life, what does it take to put that much trust in your life into the hands of somebody else? When he says, "Yeah, I can do it," what makes you think, all right, he can do it, he better not kill me?
Well, like I said, I mean, it took me all day to really come to grips with it. But you're kind of putting the trust into your opponent every time you get in the ring. Mm-hmm. I mean, no matter what you're doing, you got to. There's a certain level of trust you have to, be with your opponent, and you're taking a risk every time you're out there. But the main goal is, you want to have a great wrestling match, but the goal is not to hurt your opponent. And when he was asking me about it, I just thought that just sounded crazy to me. Now he had perfected doing it from the top rope. I don't know if you remember any of those matches, but in the early days he would do a Hurricane Rana from the top rope on the guys. So when he brought this up, it wasn't like it was completely out of left field. I knew he had done that. So but I just thought about it, and I thought about it, and like I said, we wanted to have the best match that we could, and a spectacular feat like that, I guess it was worth the risk. It paid off, man, and we're still talking about it today.
America's Most Wanted versus SEX, Christopher Daniels and Elix Skipper. Like, if you're a wrestling fan, you've seen that clip, and that's something that doesn't just live for a couple weeks. Like I see in today's generation, like a GIF, a little clip of a wrestling thing might go viral, might get a million views, but in 2 days, everyone forgets about it. That is something that not only for Impact Wrestling and TNA, but wrestling in general is burnt into people's minds and will go on forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And that's what Impact Wrestling does. It creates moments. And I think we create moments better than almost any wrestling company on the planet today.
Congratulations on ABC becoming Impact World Tag Team Champions. Long overdue in the eyes of many Impact fans, myself included. So let's talk about that night, the match, and that moment of realization of what's just happened.
Yeah. One of those crazy nights, man, that you don't know how it's going to feel until it feels. And I was under the impression that around Sacrifice, we should face the Machine Guns for this championships, and they decided that night would be a better night, which I'm not a guy who turns down competition. Ace isn't a guy who turns down competition, but, to be ready to just go into battle with the Machine Guns is not an easy task, but we've done it before. Our very first tag team match was against the Machine Guns. The first time me and Ace were on the same page, and we didn't get the job done that night. And before we went to Japan, we didn't get the job done, and we came back and we didn't get the job done. So it was feeling a little bit deflating, but we knew that, just like the catchphrase, man, all it takes is one shot. And something about us doing it and being in Vegas where it's all began for me. Like I was fighting with something different that night. And every time that, you know, they were targeting my arm, and every time that I just felt like I didn't have anything left, the people gave me all their energy. And I had more in the tank than I knew. And the magic happened that night. You know, Ace likes to say we don't just rely on luck. We make our own luck. And it was one of those nights where it was just special, man. Everything just aligned right. And we beat the Motor City Machine Guns. We became new Impact World Tag Team Champions. We didn't want to have a torch that was passed. We wanted to take the torch. I think we took it.
And Mickey, real quick, we've got Raven going into the Hall of Fame this coming weekend. Great person Raven is. And, you know, in the Hall of Fame, we see Gail Kim, we see Awesome Kong. You yourself are going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, no questions asked. Are there any other knockouts that you would like to see get inducted in the Hall of Fame? Who do you think the next deserving one would be?
Oh God. Tracy Brooks, their original OG knockout.
Toronto's finest. We love her.
Oh, that's right. Or a Tara. I think Tara was, and she did incredible things. I mean, hell, even the Beautiful People, I felt like they were so over when they were there, like as a group, especially in a tag team. I mean, when we were there and when I was, 2010, like those ladies would get some of the hottest reactions of the night, you know, like the people loved the Beautiful People, whether they were mostly bad girls, you know, obviously. But yeah, I always say I always feel like there's a long list of ladies that belong in the Hall of Fame. And I say this, you know, all the time before me, but I always go back to the women that I watched and that inspired me, you know? And so, yeah.
This year we're seeing Raven, who's going to enter the Hall of Fame. In the prior years, we've seen Gail Kim and Awesome Kong get inducted into the Hall of Fame as well. Are there any other knockouts that you would like to see personally go into the Hall of Fame?
So you said Gail Kim, Awesome Kong. I mean, that's a good question.
It could be male figures as well. Then we don't have to just limit it to the knockouts, but
Madison isn't in it. Is she in the Hall of Fame already?
I don't think so. No.
Okay, Madison. I'm probably like 90% sure that she's going to be inducted at some point. Like, I just feel like that's going to happen. So she'll definitely get inducted. She was just like a huge staple of the Knockouts division for so long, even though she's with AEW now. But yeah, off the top of my head, is Mickey in it?
Mickey's not in it yet. Not that I know of,
okay.
At least.
Well, maybe I'll end her career and then she'll go in the Hall.
then you can induct her into the Hall of Fame after, right?
Yeah, we'll do it right there after the match.
Yeah, on the spot. First time ever.
Since we're talking about Eric Young already, how much are you learning right now working with him? Because you said this is 20 years difference now. Eric's been all over the place, lots of experience, and he was arguably the king of independent wrestling in Ontario. How much are you learning right now working with Eric?
I'm learning a lot. I'm learning a lot about myself, and if I'm being completely honest, there's a wide range of emotions involved. One just being the fact that I get to stand alongside one of my best friends. But if I'm being completely honest, part of it actually really pisses me off. And this is part of the discussion that I had with him. And what I mean by that is Eric Young is here in his career. He's done everything. He's won championships. He's been the heavyweight champion at Impact Wrestling. He's reached the pinnacle. And if I compare myself to him, I've been in the business almost as long as him, I've had a lot of similar experiences. If I'm being honest, I know I'm here. And this was part of the heart-to-heart discussion that I had with my friend. He's like, hey, man, you deserve to be here. But the way the company sees you, the way the wrestling fans see you, the way you see yourself, you're here. And you're always going to stay here unless you're willing to make a change. And I decided it was time to make that change because I don't want to be here. I want to be here. And I learned that from Eric Young, who's been everywhere and done everything. He is a chameleon in this business. He can be funny when he needs to be funny. He can be a maniac when he needs to be maniac. But really, his success is he's willing to do what he has to do to get to here. And I've been able to learn, okay, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to be here. And now I'm coming up to here with the help of my friend Eric Young. And that's just the truth.
Perfect. And Eric, real quick for you, with the success of Violent by Design over the last couple of years, it speaks for itself. You can really feel the passion and the believability in what you three are doing. I was wondering if you could kind of take us back to the creative origins for Violent by Design, and just was this an idea that you always had? How hands-on have you been with the creative, and what's your experience creatively with Impact Wrestling compared to other places that you may have worked in the past?
Violent by Design, I mean, obviously, I think anything in wrestling that's successful, it's a collaboration, right? It's not one person's idea or, a single person dictating. I think all the best stuff is done collaboratively, and VBD was definitely done collaboratively. There was lots of discussions about who would it be and who would be in the group and what I thought was right. And, very hands-on with Scott and all the people in management of, the picking the music and the vignettes that Eric Tompkins and Dave Zahadi, the ideas that they had and the verbiage, all the creative side. And that's, for me, is the biggest drug in wrestling. Obviously the big being performing in the ring, like that's an irreplaceable drug to me. It can't be duplicated, but the creative side of it has always been my favorite part. For lack of a different word, is manipulating people and convincing them that this is the person that I am and this is what I believe. And I think me and Joe and Cody and the entire team at Impact have done a really good job. VBD is a huge part of the show, has been a huge part of the show from day one, and will continue to be. And for me, I mean, it is selfish, but the honest truth is I feel like we're just scratching the surface with what it can be. And the idea behind it, and we've touched on it some of the origin story and what it's really about, and it can go as deep as we want it to, and that's what's exciting to me. And obviously, being in a group with two people that you love and respect, Cody Deaner I've known for well over 20 years, and Joe I've known for a long time as well. I can remember him first coming around BCW, working shows for Scott years and years ago, and obviously not as close with him as I am with Cody, but Joe has quickly become one of my favorite people in the world, one of my favorite wrestlers in the world. And I get to stand ringside and watch him just do things that nobody else is doing, with a physical style that nobody else is doing, and just a way of being that can't be duplicated. So it's a really cool point in my career. And I said this in an interview earlier today, is I'm having the most fun I've ever had in wrestling ever. And Scott D'Amore and the staff and Anthem Sports have created a very special place. And I'm not, again, trying to talk for Josh, but I know I've read and seen things that he's saying, and he's just signed a new contract and is here full time because of this environment. And it is singular. And I've worked in a lot of places, and I can tell you it is not like this anywhere else. And the grass is not greener on the other side. I'm just ultra proud and ultra happy to be exactly where I am.
Over the last few weeks, we've seen you have your eyes open, so to speak, as Eric Young would say. You're seeing a massive transformation in you, a completely new look, a complete new attitude. How's the transformation been for you from a mental standpoint? You were the Cody Deaner character before, a little bit more of the comedy side, and now you get to show the serious side. How are you enjoying getting to show that new side of Deaner to the world?
All of the verbiage, all of the things I've said in interviews, all the things that have come out of my mouth, whether it's on social media or on the television show, they're all real. When I say I am free, I mean that. Like, this is freeing. I am no longer constrained to this box of, okay, you are the role, you're the funny guy, go make people laugh and be funny. That's your role. I can do that role. I did that role for years. I'm really good at it. But if you just keep me in that box, which is what I felt like I was in for so many years, I started to realize, wait a minute, I got to take the lid off of this damn box and show the world that I'm one of the best professional wrestlers on the planet. I have more to offer than just what is happening in this box. Eric Young has lived that, and he's proven it. With his guidance, he's helping me break out of that damn box and show the world that I'm one of the best professionals in the world.
And we look forward.
It's really freeing, man. It's totally freeing.
Oh, absolutely. It's got to be liberating for you. And we're really enjoying seeing what you've been doing. I personally have really enjoyed seeing this new side of you. And now you're going to get to show it in the ring a little bit more. Like you said, the restraints are lifted off you. So I can't wait to continue seeing that. As a performer, though, you guys rely so heavily on the interaction with the crowd and that instant feedback from the crowd. What kind of adjustments have you had to make not being able to perform in front of the audience, and especially going through a huge change like you're going through? How difficult has that been?
It's not easy, but I never thought I would say this when we started this at the beginning of this whole pandemic and the lack of an audience. Is I thought I'm never going to be able to get used to this. Everything that we do is based on interactions with the crowd, and when you want to draw the audience in to what you're feeling, and you want to make them feel something. Now, all the things that I want the audience to feel, I don't know if they're feeling that because they're not in the room with me. So it's a whole other different skill set now. Is I have to be able to feel what I'm doing so much that it has to explode through the camera and make the people at home feel this, because that's the only people that are my audience. It's no longer the people that are around me in the room. It's only the people that are through that lens. So you got to step up your game, man. It's time for us to step up our game. I've had to step up my game because now I got to make the person at home feel something, not just the people in the audience react. And that's a whole different skill set, but I'm up for the challenge. And I'm happy to say, and it's weird, I'm actually starting to get used to it. Just in the last couple tapings we've had, I've started to get used to there not being an audience and dropping in and feeling what I'm doing and making it, living the reality of the moment. And I think that's coming across on camera to the fans. I've got nothing but positive feedback with what I'm doing. And I think all the guys in the locker room, guys and girls, are both doing this. I'm seeing it when I'm watching the show as well, that everybody in Impact Wrestling is stepping up their game during this time. And in my humble opinion, we have the best professional wrestling show on the planet. And we're seeing that each and every week on the show.
That's tough.
We saw for the whole last year, Violent by Design be this force to be reckoned with. Since you and Big Con have joined up with Diener, we've seen a very different side of the design. What is it? Is it important to you to have done something different with it than what Eric did?
Yeah. I think when we first started, we wanted to take the essence of Violent by Design, but we wanted to have it be something completely different, so that not everybody wasn't just like, oh, this is just a Violent by Design knockoff or whatever they wanted to call it. We wanted it to be different. We wanted it to be something that was our own as opposed to what was Eric's, if that makes sense. We wanted it to be the design, you know?
It makes 100% and it's working. Fans are behind it. Fans are loving it.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago with that amazing sketch that Diener and EY did together, like when you're watching that, like what are your opinions on watching that segment? Because I thought it was one of the best things of the year in professional wrestling.
Yeah, I really think that Impact does a really great job of introducing people and then writing people off, right? We saw Diener kind of kill EY, right? But that's not just what Violent by Design was. EY has been, not the heart and soul, because that's someone else's thing, right? But like the heart and soul of Impact Wrestling for 20 years, right? Like, so I think that for them to do him justice all these years and then to write him off in a way that is now building somebody else is what Impact does great. Great debuts for people, but then also really thoughtful ways of saying, like, you did what you needed to do here. You're putting the guy over on the way out, and now best of luck. So I think that it was incredible. I think Impact does really great all across the board in any genre of wrestling, whether it's the serious Violent by Design stuff, whether it's the serious Josh Alexander, multiple times he's done hour-long matches on television, whether it's giving the Knockouts another platform for main event pay-per-view matches, for main event television matches, 20+ minute matches, multiple women segments. I mean, there's just something for everyone in what we do. So it's really exciting to see it. People are giving us a chance again and really investing in what Impact Wrestling is doing.
Absolutely. And this is the best time for people to jump back on that Impact bandwagon, because without a question, it is the greatest weekly television show in professional wrestling right now. And you got to have a lot of fun stuff and a lot of big moments this year too. And I think the one that everybody talks about the most is probably your humongous ladder bump at the Queen of the Mountain match. First of all, how amazing was it for you guys to get that opportunity to bring the Queen of the Mountain to Impact Wrestling, the return of that match? And second of all, what's going through your mind when you're up that high and you're about to take that tumble? Because my God, that was a hell of a bump.
I think when they announced and told all of us you're going to be in a Queen of the Mountain match, it was like, what the hell? I don't even know what that is. Like, and there's so many rules and things like that. But I think once, you know, they kind of broke it down for all of us girls, we made a group chat. We constantly were talking about, what if we did this? And okay, so how does the rules work with this? And just really tried to understand the concept first. And then, yeah, talk about ideas, all these things. And someone had asked, like, oh, so Dee and Chelsea, how do you feel about going off the ladder through a table? And I think we all just thought it was like a joke. And we were like, oh yeah, that'd be great. And then we get there and they're like setting up the ladder to see where it needs to go to fall. And I was like, if I just don't think about it, it'll be fine. And then Chelsea climbs up and I climb up right after her. And we're supposed to be like yelling at each other, like, no, you're not going to do it. I'm going to do it. Are they going to work together or are they going to turn on each other? We weren't a tag team yet. And Chelsea said to me, like, Dee, you need to come up one more rung. And I guess I had just like blacked out and been like, okay, so I climb up one more rung. And she says, you looked at me in the eyes, dead in my eyes, and said, I'm scared. And then we fell. I don't know what was going through my mind because I don't remember that. But I remember hitting the floor and being like, we're okay. I'm alive. And then I was like sobbing on the floor.
I think it's so funny that in your group chat, it was just like, you guys are doing this. Like, what does that say about you and Chelsea? Like, are you guys like the crazy ones or something that it's just like, oh yeah, they'll just do it. No problem.
I'm the opposite of a crazy wrestler. I like my feet on the ground. I think that in hindsight, it just really worked. And, you know, then we started to establish me and Chelsea being VXT, becoming a tag team, or Vexed, becoming a tag team. And going from there. So I think that moment kind of really solidified us as like, oh, they're a unit. And we already are a unit, right? Because she was my matron of honor. She is my best friend in the whole world. We spend all of our days together, right? But on television, we hadn't really told that story yet. So it was, I think, again, it just solidified like, oh, they're a package deal and they do everything together. And after the pay-per-view, when we were kind of scrolling through Twitter and saw some GIFs and videos, there was a lot of people with like the GIF. Now the movie escapes my brain, where the two girls are holding hands and they drive off.
Thelma and Louise.
Yes, and how that was me and Chelsea. And honestly, like it's so symbolic of our wrestling careers until this point, what's happened to us in other places. And yeah, just we're the girls that are ride or die and we're going to hold hands and we're going to drive off the cliff together. So I loved it. I think that's one of my favorite moments of my career thus far.
Oh, that's amazing. And, you know, from a personal standpoint,
do you have any cool stories about getting to know Diener backstage?
One word. He's underrated. Like, I think it's one of those things. Diener, it doesn't matter. He can be a beloved comedy character and he can be a hated cult leader. I think Cody Diener is one of the most underrated people in professional wrestling, not only on the mic, but in the ring. And I think it's one of those things like people are finally starting to see how talented he truly is. And he's a guy, I think, if if all the planets align, he could be a huge star in professional wrestling. I think he's on the way to just that.
Impact Wrestling and just kind of its resurgence and the buzz that it's starting to get now. I know you've done some work, in the last few years with Impact. What's your view on the overall product and what you think they need to do to continue to grow that audience?
Yeah, I mean, that's the big question, man. That's the question we ask ourselves every week. Is what steps need to be taken? And on the creative team, I think in my mind, look, we just put on the best wrestling show we can put on, and I think we have made strides over the last handful of years since Scott and Don took over and they brought me on board. going from when I came in late 2017 and then into 2018, it was just about at first not making the show not an embarrassing product to watch, right? TNA and Impact had a long history of promoting stuff and then not delivering it to the fans or just insulting the fans' intelligence. And so a lot of it just became about, let's just reestablish trust with our audience. If we say something, let's do it. On our pay-per-views, let's give them finishes, things like that. And, throughout the years, just trying to make the best product we can and get different people involved. And we've been fortunate, to get some good players. As we lose, some of the other players we used to have, we get new players on the board. And that's the cycle of wrestling. So yeah, what do we need to do to go to that next level? I mean, who knows?
You tell him. How important is it to you to be an integral part of Impact's comeback story?
Very much so. Sure, I've been world champion. I've been match of the year, moment of the year, wrestler of the year for Impact Wrestling. But being a part of Impact Wrestling and being one of the people that helped turn this company around, being a part of that at the ground level, that means more to me than any championship I could ever win on my resume. Because some people may have won to go to other companies. Some people may have won to go to Japan. Me, growing up, I was a diehard TNA fan. I went to the shows at the Asylum. I drove 4 hours down from Ohio. It was always TNA's where I wanted to go. TNA's where I want to go. And then getting a chance to come here when Impact Wrestling was at a lull. It was at a down period with the old regime, and having the new regime come in and see the growth exponentially for the last 5 years is absolutely crazy. And being a part of that is one of the best things I could ever think of.
First time ever matchup at Slammiversary, Queen of the Mountain, 4 former Impact Knockouts World Champions, Deonna Purrazzo, Jordynne Grace, Chelsea Green, Mia Yim, and the defending champion, Tasha Steelz, in one of Impact's most unique signature matches. Now, was this something that's been in the works for a while, or did it all come together as a perfect storm of timing and talent?
I would say it was a perfect start. I'm not part of the creative team, and I think a lot of people have the misconception that I know everything that's going, because there's a lot of moving parts within a wrestling company. Sometimes I don't know what's going on creatively. And so I was told I was going to announce the match, which was really exciting. But I think the lead up to that really was, the Ultimate X match, the first time the Knockouts had that Ultimate X match. Those girls, they saw the structure going up for the guys at a TV taping, and they essentially went to Scott and said, we want to have this match. And, Scott never doubts the girls, but he's like, it's a high risk match. You need a lot of upper body strength. Can we find the number of girls we need for this match? And all the girls just started climbing it to show that they could do it. I mean, listen, they fought for that match and they got it. And then once they delivered, they didn't have to fight for this match. It was like Slammiversary 20 is coming. It's an important pay-per-view. They just trusted them. They said, let's give them this match. And so it's getting easier and easier, as these things come along. And someone had just told me today that they interviewed Tasha Steelz, and she said she wants to do Lockdown. I was like, oh, that's so interesting, because I never got to do Ultimate X. I never got to do Queen of the Mountain, because those are almost a step up in terms of, steel cage matches have been done, and they're almost kind of going back to the simple, things that have been done, because they haven't experienced that. So it's very cool that the girls are doing everything the guys are doing.
And you got to have a lot of fun stuff and a lot of big moments this year too. And I think the one that everybody talks about the most is probably your humongous ladder bump at the Queen of the Mountain match. First of all, how amazing was it for you guys to get that opportunity to bring the Queen of the Mountain to Impact Wrestling, the return of that match? And second of all, what's going through your mind when you're up that high and you're about to take that tumble? Because my God, that was a hell of a bump.
I think when they announced and told all of us you're going to be in a Queen of the Mountain match, it was like, what the heck? I don't even know what that is. Like, and there's so many rules and things like that. But I think once, they kind of broke it down for all of us girls, we made a group chat. We constantly were talking about, what if we did this? And okay, so how does the rules work with this? And just really tried to understand the concept first. And then, yeah, talk about ideas, all these things. And someone had asked, like, oh, so D and Chelsea, how do you feel about going off the ladder through a table? And I think we all just thought it was like a joke. And we were like, oh, yeah, that'd be great. And then we get there and they're like setting up the ladder to see where it needs to go to fall. And I was like, if I just don't think about it, it'll be fine. And then Chelsea climbs up and I climb up right after her. And we're supposed to be like yelling at each other, like, no, you're not going to do it. I'm going to do it. Are they going to work together or are they going to turn on each other? We weren't a tag team yet. And Chelsea said to me, like, D, you need to come up one more rung. And I guess I had just like blacked out and been like, okay, so I climb up one more rung. And she says, you looked at me in the eyes, dead in my eyes, and said, I'm scared. And then we fell. I don't know what was going through my mind because I don't remember that. But I remember hitting the floor and being like, we're okay. I'm alive. I'm alive. And then I was like sobbing on the floor.
How proud are you to work for a company like Impact that has been putting women's performances on the same level as the men's, if not higher?
For the longest time. I mean, since before well ahead of the curve, almost like ahead of their time with it. Like they were seeing the knockouts in this place of main event status, of having these cage matches like the one that I had with Tara, or these Falls Count Anywhere matches and hardcore matches. I was the first woman. I mean, this is way back when Impact first started at TNA in the fairgrounds, where I had the first woman to ever do the Clockwork Orange House of Fun match against Jeff Jarrett, and it's crazy. It's really crazy. And it's awesome to see how much wrestling has evolved, and from the fans' perspective since then, because, for the longest time, it was like the girls' match was considered good as long as it was passable and they got through it and there wasn't any mess ups, and it was like, oh, good job for a girls' match. And I always considered that to be like, I wanted so badly to get past that perspective and to be seen like, no, that was a hell of a match, girls, and I think the first time I truly, like, luckily I had a locker room full of like really supportive guys and brothers that really, through my whole journey, that understood that I really wanted to be seen as one of the boys. Like I wanted to be seen as an equal, that I could go just as hard as them in there and be respected on that same level. And obviously it wasn't always true with everybody. There were people who thought that, all the things like that women still don't deserve to get into the massage line or whatever on a day 13 on the tour, or whatever the case may be. However, there genuinely came a level change when I think after the fans had started to see women's wrestling presented in this way, that they wanted it to see that everywhere. Like they wanted to see what the women were capable of everywhere, because they were really only seeing at an Impact of the knockouts being given like these crazy opportunities. And it's fun. And it's fun to be a part of that locker room since day one. But I think about the amount, like all the things the women have done. I mean, Lita and Trish main eventing Raw for me was one of those big defining moments where I go like, oh shit, like this is possible. Sorry. This is possible. Like they're main eventing the show. Like, and that really had never happened before. And for me, because, and that point of my career, my goal was to become WWE Women's Champion and to become the best women's champion of all time. And I had these like little goals. It starts with, getting the job, and then it gets, get the debut, and then win the championship, and then be the best. Like it was all these like little things, and then change the business, and then women are equals, like all these things, and they've all come to true. But that was a clear defining moment for me in that beginning step journey to go like, this is possible. Like, so I'm not crazy in thinking that, women can be seen on an equal platform, because they're main eventing the show and they killed it, and I was like, it's changing. Change is going to come. Thanks, Sam Cooke. Like it's it's really, really cool. And then, obviously there's always like this roller coaster and wrestling and entertainment and all these things. But now sitting there and going like, women are the main event. Deanna and I were the first time the Knockouts Knockouts World Championship has ever been on the line in the main event at Hard to Kill. So that was pretty historic. But the Knockouts have been the main event of the show for a long time, but the women were just the main event of WrestleMania. And who would have thought that would have ever happened before? Nobody would have ever thought that. But we're just in a time now, and I think that in every other sport, you're looking at women who are the coaches of football teams. You're looking at women who are headlining MMA cards, and with no second guessing. It's not like, oh, we're having the ladies match be the thing. No, it's the main event because it's the main event. And now to see wrestling step up and get into that same place, it's freaking cool. And I'm just glad to still be a part of it, to see it firsthand and to be in it firsthand. Because, that was always the dream, I think, for all the girls who in every locker room across, for years, was to be in that place.
It's pretty safe to say that this Knockouts division is one of the most well-respected divisions in all of wrestling. Trinity, was this something that maybe swayed you to want to sign with Impact Wrestling?
Definitely the division, the women's division, the Knockouts, is one of the major reasons that swayed me and, made me want to come to Impact Wrestling. I knew it'd be the place where I can grow and be challenged and really be put to the test, which is what I need and want at this point in my career. And these ladies, they're tough, they're rough, they're technical, they're talented. You have every type of style on our roster. So it's not going to be easy. And anything I get, I know that it's going to be earned, because they're not just going to lay down for anybody.
Let's talk about some of those compelling matches and stories that you've told. Huge part of the company's history. So tell us about some of your personal favorite contributions to Impact Wrestling over the last 20 years. Maybe a hidden gem fans can discover or rediscover on Impact Plus or over on the Impact Ultimate Insiders YouTube channel.
I think the one that's going to be probably expected, is Awesome Kong, of course. That was the very beginning of our women's division, the Knockouts division. So we didn't know what it was going to be. We're just happy that we got this Knockouts division off the ground and got a title in there, brought in essentially 10 girls that were added to this already maybe tiny little 4 or 5 girls that were in this company, and not all in wrestling roles, because there was like a SoCal Val, people who didn't necessarily contribute in the ring, but had personalities, and they gave a position for everyone. And everyone, just like today, we have a Maria Kanellis, we have people who are really good in the ring. But that would probably be, the final resolution with Awesome Kong, a no DQ match. That was the first time in my opinion, I experienced magic, what we call in our business, where those moments can be rare. It's very lucky, in my mind, fortunate to experience that. So I never knew if I'd have it again. And I had that again with Taryn Terrell. Last Knockout Standing match was another one that people didn't expect. And, it was incredible to be able to, both those matches, it was, if you watch those matches back, and by the end of it, the fan reaction in both of them is what we call, from a wrestler's point of view, where we had them in the palm of our hand. And it's just magical to experience that, to have that feeling of energy from the fans, and you just got them, as we say. A ladder match for Taryn after that as well, I have to say, is on my top 3 as well. And I would say the last one that comes to mind for me is my final match in my career, and that was against Tessa Blanchard. So, there's been some special moments, match quality wise, because that's what I care about, is the body of my work. Is, because some people care about other things, what they want to accomplish in the business. It could be anything from money to matches to character work and everything like that. But for me, I want people to have everlasting memories of what I created in that ring. And for people to come to me and talk about those matches to this day is unbelievable.
you say what you want. Some people say it's a positive, some people it's negative, but we still talk about your moment with the bat in Eddie Edwards' face. You know, say what it is, but it's a moment that lives in history.
Look, for me and Eddie, I think it's one of the greatest moments in Impact Wrestling history. Hell,
Right.
we were on TMZ. We were on TMZ Sports.
Yeah.
It was something that I think at that point, maybe it sucked a little bit that Eddie Edwards got his face smashed with a baseball bat,
Sure.
but it was one of the best things that happened to Impact Wrestling at the time, because it didn't matter if you're a wrestling fan overseas, it didn't matter if you're a wrestling fan in the United States, in Canada, in Mexico, in Japan. Everyone in the wrestling world was talking about it. And I think it launched me and Eddie Edwards to that next level of professional wrestling. That's a moment no one can ever take away from us or Impact Wrestling.
Now, Rich Swann wins the Impact World Championship at Bound for Glory 2020, and you immediately knock on his door for a shot.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's your first ever shot at the world title. And from what I've been able to find in my research, the first time ever that two African Americans headlined a major Impact Wrestling event. Now, I could be wrong
Yeah.
about that, but even still, talk about pressure. Aside from wanting to take home the gold, what else were you out to prove that night at Final Resolution, which, by the way, is an incredible match. You guys should all go download Impact Plus. It's worth going out of your way to watch it.
I was wanting to prove two things, more than anything else in the world. You know, I had goals of becoming the youngest world champion, and those goals didn't exactly pan out. But two things that I needed to prove more than anything. One was that I could hang in this main event slot. You know, I could perform and execute to the best of my abilities, which would be good enough. You know, I didn't want to be as good as this person or as good as that one. Keep up with that. Rich is his own level of performer, you know, so like you have to go in there and be the best level of you if you're going to go in there and mix it up with someone like Rich. You know, you can't try to be like him. You got to be the best you. So I wanted to prove that I could hang in that spot. And then two, I wanted to prove that, you know, two guys who aren't deemed as these heavyweights, two guys who are relatively normal sized guys, but passion the size that you've never seen before, you know, could go out there and represent in this position, because there was a lot of people who didn't want to see that, not because of our race, but sometimes just because of our sheer size. You know, people, those aren't heavyweights, that isn't this. But that's the great thing about Impact Wrestling is, you know, they let you be who you are, you know, and they don't hold you back for who you are. You know, they let you be you and excel as you. And that was the proof right there. You know, two guys who are undoubtedly the greatest versions of themselves and very authentic to themselves, representing the company in this marquee main event for the world championship. Like you said, you know, the first of its kind, you know, in that major pay-per-view setting for Impact Wrestling. So I was out to prove those two things, and I think we got those things done.
You know, from a personal standpoint for you, you must have had a blast getting to work with Chelsea, who's, like you just said, one of your best friends. Is that one of your career highlights, getting to tag with her and winning the gold? And
Yeah, absolutely. We pushed so hard for VXT while we were in NXT to be a thing, for someone to believe in it, right? And it was talked about and tossed around a whole bunch of different times in NXT in Impact. And when it finally happened, it was just like a little bit of validation, a little bit of surrealness, and like then was like, oh wow, we're tag team champions and we did it together. And that's what we wanted. There's very few people, I think, in our entire industry who truly have a best friend who you spend every day with in real life, but then also get to work with and have each other's best interest in mind. And I feel very strongly about women's wrestling. If my friends succeed, then I succeed. It's not just about my success. It's watching them thrive too makes me so happy. And I feel like I thrive through them. And I think Chelsea's number one for me in that. And to be able to have those moments together, because our careers have just been separate and people didn't believe in us, and why would best friends be a tag team, and all these things that we were told. And then Impact was like, try it. And it was scary, and we didn't know what the hell we were doing half the time. We were learning as we went on television every week. But yeah, the highlight of my career is being by your side. And when we won the tag team championships, I took them from the ref and I handed one to her and I said, finally. And we just like kind of cried together for a second. And then it was like, okay, suck in, let's get a good picture. But that is our friendship.
The breakup with America's Most Wanted. Do you think the timing was right on that? Is that something you and James both kind of wanted to explore as a singles run, or do you think you guys had a little bit more mileage left in the team?
I think we could have gone longer, but it was something that we were cool with because I think we were ready to give it a shot in a singles run. I had a lot of success there early on, and of course Storm's still doing it today. So it worked out really, really well. And I think what really got people's attention was the Texas Death Match against each other. I think we really opened some eyes with that, and people saw, okay, these guys can go. So I think America's Most Wanted could have definitely gone on longer, and we could have done more. But maybe the time was right, to kind of explore other options.
And looking back at that feud from a booking standpoint, do you think that the company got all they could have out of that feud? Because to me, I feel like they could have extended it for a couple more months with the history that you guys had. Starting it off in the cage with the blindfold match was definitely a unique way to start the program.
Yeah, I mean, the blindfold match wasn't, we kind of look back and think of that as a bad idea. But, when you're looking at booking terms, story-wise, with him blinding me with the bottle and that, I mean, it made for a perfect story. I just think nowadays, people aren't as into the whole blindfold thing as they were back in the day. So it just didn't work the same way we wanted it to. But I think we turned it around and gave them exactly what they wanted with the Texas Death Match.
Your triumphant return to Impact Wrestling. I was certainly excited when that happened, but I have to ask, you had made a return after spending some time away from the company for shooting Johnny Bravo. So when you came back, was there any initial awkwardness or hesitation given where you had been serving your time, or did it feel more like you were coming home?
I think a little bit of both, but I also think the awkwardness was on my side because I felt like embarrassed, and I felt like, I don't know, I just felt like I let everybody down. So I was very like apprehensive and just kind of like maybe not as like forward and not being myself a little bit at first, but obviously that all went away as time went on. And I just think that they were there with open arms, everybody in the roster, everybody, all the fans. The reaction of me coming back at the WrestleCon show, for example, was magical. But yeah, no, it definitely felt like I was coming home, but it was my personal issues when I was where I felt just a little, sad about the whole thing. But coming back and knowing that I was coming back to an environment where they believed in me. And I've said this before, but like Scott D'Amore and Gail Kim were, some of the first people to text or call me when I got released, and were just like, they know how passionate I am about this business and how much everything means to me so much, to the point where sometimes it's like I'm a little too sensitive, but they were just like, everything is going to be okay. And guess what? Everything was more than okay. And everything has been more than okay. And now I'm a 2-time, Knockouts World Tag Team Champion. I'm tagging with my best friends, the Death Dolls, and really just finding my place. And I have. And my confidence and my just attitude is just, I feel like myself again. And that is just all I want, all you could want, really.
I'll say the only way that you may have let the fans down was that you didn't get the job done in actually taking out Johnny Bravo. I know there's quite a few fans who would have
still alive.
You would have been real happy if you had just gotten the job done. But other than that, we were all quite pleased with the work you did.
We have Counted Out with Mike and Tyler.
Hey guys, how we doing?
How are you?
Doing great, guys. Thanks for taking my question here. I'd like to ask a question to both of you, actually. I want to talk about the incredible main event scene in Impact Wrestling right now, and just the incredible job that Impact has done in building the credibility of all of its championships. Both of you have been such a huge part in helping set the standards of what it takes to become a champion in Impact Wrestling. And on any given night, we can see any champion in that main event spot. So my question is there a little bit of friendly, let's call it competition in that locker room when it comes to maybe the Knockouts, the X Division, and that world title scene of who's going to get that main event spot in all those big shows?
Oh man, as far as competition goes like that, not that I know of. And quite frankly, I don't care. I care about my performance alone. I hope everybody else kills it in their matches too, but if I take my eyes off the prize, then I'm not devoting 100% of my attention to what I need to do. And to me, that's irresponsible. And I think really, truly, it speaks to my work ethic, but that work ethic is reciprocated amongst most of the other champions that I've seen. And again, I don't pay tons of attention to it, but everybody's working their ass off to provide the absolute best in-ring product. And I think that's why Impact, especially this year, is starting to catch some eyes. It's probably the most underrated wrestling product that I've seen in my 30 plus years of being a wrestling fan.
I agree with Alex. I think you never know who you're going to see in that title picture. I think Impact has been very consistent in terms of, utilizing most of our talent, or if not all of our talent. So you never know who's going to have that one opportunity and step up to the plate. And like Alex said, it's, for me, just watching from the outside backstage, and that work ethic is very important and plays a factor, and who wants it the most and who's willing to put in the most work. And Alex waited a long time for that opportunity and he seized it. So who's that next person?
Absolutely. I just think it's just a tip of the cap to all you guys. I don't know another wrestling promotion in the world where any champion on any given night can slide into that main event spot and everybody's excited for it. So I just love what Impact's doing. I agree with everything you guys are saying. And you UK fans, we want to hear you singing some Impact Wrestling theme songs as well. Okay, as Canadians, we're proud fans over here, but we want to hear what songs you guys are going to be singing over there. We're looking forward to it. Best of luck, guys. Enjoy the tour.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
You're in a place right now where you might be one of those guys in the ring with Josh Alexander. What's it like watching him grow from where he was a couple years ago to being the world champion? Us as Canadians, we're loving it. But what's it like, someone being in, as competitive as you are, as proud to be in that locker room? What's it like to share a locker room with somebody like with Alexander?
Yeah, Josh Alexander's awesome. And I was even telling somebody the other day that, like, he personifies like what I think a world champion should be, if that makes sense. 100%. I think he looks the part, he acts the part, like he is like that old school almost what a world champion is supposed to represent in a company, and he really carries the Impact banner on his back. And he's one of the guys that I definitely want to get in the ring with sometime soon, for sure.
I have no doubt we'll be seeing that soon enough.
Yeah. I was to get my title shot, whether at Sacrifice or hopefully at Rebellion, one of those two pay-per-views against Josh Alexander, and to beat the longest reigning champion in Impact history in his home state or in his home country would add another layer to of my accomplishments.
I won't lie and say that that's not something we fans have been thinking about. I mean, let's talk about that for a minute. It's not an if you're going to be getting in the ring with Josh Alexander this year. It's when are you getting in the ring with Josh Alexander this year? I think that's a very easy statement to make. From a personal standpoint, I mean, what's your thoughts when you're watching Josh Alexander in that ring? I mean, from going from now being the longest reigning Impact champion in history to having, I'd say, tied with only maybe you, having the best matches on the card throughout the whole year, doing an hour with Mike Bailey a few weeks ago. When you're sitting in the back and you're watching him go an hour with Mike Bailey, what's your thought process, knowing that eventually you're going to get in that ring?
Oh, just knows what I'm going up against. I think that's the best part about it, is I'm very unpredictable with what I'm going to do, and Josh is very predictable with what he's going to do. He adapts to his opponent, which kudos to him, but at the same time, he's never been in the ring with somebody like me. And here you have two of the best. You have the longest reigning Impact World Champion of all time versus probably, I don't know, I guess the best up and coming in Impact history to go towards the title. And we both vie that we're the best in this company. And for it to be for the Impact World title at some point, I think that's the biggest matchup in history in a long time, where you finally have that match that is about the Impact World title that means the most in this company.
I want to keep on the Canadian train here, and I want to talk about one Mr. Josh Alexander and just the incredible year that he is having. What is it about Josh, like for you, like to just sit back and watch him? How incredible has it been to watch his title run for you guys?
Oh, Josh is one of my favorite wrestlers in the entire world. And then also one of my favorite humans. But just to watch, like, again, what he thinks is important, he can just go out there and just do it and not have any second thoughts or, or anything planned. Like, he is just a wrestler's wrestler, right up my alley. And I'm in awe by all of the matches that he's had. And, you know, he just went an hour with Mike Bailey, like that, you know what I mean? So I think that anyone that wants to be the world champion, aspires to be the world champion, has huge shoes to fill, because Josh has just taken this world championship reign and gone above and beyond and ran with it. So, you know, I'm really excited to see what happens with Bully Ray at Hard to Kill. And then, you know, who's going to challenge him after. I'm excited to see who dethrones him, because again, it's big shoes to fill, and what is that person then going to do with it?
Absolutely. And, you know, the Canadian pride for us, we love watching Josh, especially with Speedball tear it down. That was really awesome to see. But that's what I love about Impact Wrestling.
You had what we called on this show possibly the best match of the year in 2001 against our fellow Canadian Josh Alexander in an amazing Iron Man match on Impact. How hard is it working with a guy like that, knowing you're making magic, but in front of an empty arena?
It's tough, and I guess depending on your upbringing in the business, it's tough, it's that kind of depends on how tough it is. For a lot of guys, to be honest, I feel like the pandemic era for any of these shows, like, I don't think it was as hard as a lot of people might think it would be for a lot of guys, because a lot of guys in newer generations are not sort of raised to do their stuff in the ring.
Right.
And so they're going out there with, you know, preset calls and things that they want to do. And so I feel like it was almost easier to do that. I know a lot of guys have sort of admitted since then that it was a lot easier. It wasn't as much fun because you don't get that energy from the audience, but it was easier to do their work. But for somebody like me that's more old schoolish, like, I don't go in with that many things preset. I go in almost with a blank slate because I was always taught the opposite. Like, So to not have that element was very different for me. So, you know, that was a little tough. I've never been an energy guy. Like, I don't get nervous, I don't get anxious, and I don't really get adrenaline. So not having an audience didn't play a factor as far as, like, you know, an energy level, like being able to do any of this. I've always been steady-handed, regardless. So that didn't really bother me at all. The hardest part was that it was formatted for television. That was the hardest part. If there's any performers listening to this, then you know, especially performers that have gone on to, like, sort of like the highest levels, like you'll know, like, that it's hard to do to perform for TV. It's like going from high school or college to the NBA, and it's like, at that point, it's not even about basketball. Like, it's about managing, like, a sports television show almost, you know, because there's so much other layers to the game. And so, like, you know, for an Iron Man, you know, if you do 10 minutes in the ring, you might have one commercial break, and you have to factor that into your work. So if you're doing 60 plus minutes, and I think we did, I don't know, I'm going to roughly say 65, might be a couple more, a couple less, because I know we went to overtime, so it was a little over an hour. So that's 7 commercial breaks that I had to sort of manage while wrestling a very physical guy. I mean, Josh is no joke. I mean, he's the greatest Canadian wrestler I've ever been in the ring with. And obviously there's Canadian legends I just haven't been in the ring with, but I'm confident saying that someday when Josh retires, for people that have been in the ring with him and watched him, he'll go down close to that same level as a performer as far as his capabilities. He's very good, very physical, and you definitely feel it when you're wrestling him. So, which I like, but over the course of an hour, that can be kind of tough.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun because you're in there with a buddy. You know, he's the type of guy that we trust each other to punch each other in the nose, man. I mean, we have that sort of relationship, and that was great. It was just logistically, it was a tough night to be a quarterback for me.
First things first, congratulations on your new championship win.
Now that you are the world champion in one of the biggest wrestling companies in the world with 20 years of history behind it, how much pressure and responsibility are you putting on yourself to be a leader in the company and help the growth of the viewership? Are you looking at TV and pay-per-view numbers a little bit differently now, or are you just kind of going business as usual and letting your in-ring work continue to speak for itself?
I mean, I certainly feel the pressure as like the acting figurehead, as the world champion, as the first person people look to for all those things. But it's honestly, it's out of my control. I can only control what I can control. And that's what I do in that ring. That's what I do on television week in, week out. And that's why I said earlier with D'Lo, like every time I step in the ring, you're going to get the same Josh Alexander. You're going to get 100% of everything I have, all the effort, everything, every time. And I think that's why I'm in the position I'm in now. I think I'm a world champion because I'm so dependable and I'm so consistent and all those other things. But like I said, those other things are out of my control.
Hoping this last rodeo continues and see what's in store for Mickie.
Yeah, and we're on the last rodeo right now. How is there a certain level of emotion for you calling these matches, knowing that this could be it for Mickie every time she gets in the ring?
Every time she gets in the ring, and then anytime there's a pin opportunity, anytime somebody's going for a submission or a pin, you realize that her career could be ending in a matter of seconds, and that's really hard to capture in terms of emotion. Like you feel that desperation, that urgency. So you're just trying to take it all for what it is, and that you're respecting the run that she's been on, the opponents that she's faced, the scenarios that she's had to be in. The fact that she put her career on the line as well in a 6 knockouts tag team match, like she could have been pinned in a situation where, there was one point in the match where her 2 tag team partners were virtually taken out. So it was essentially a 3-on-1 opportunity for Giselle Shaw and Vex to beat the heck out of Mickie James. So it's not just a conventional one-on-one match that she's like, oh, this is the only way it needs to happen. No, Mickie gets pinned, it's over, period. And one of the great wrestlers in the history of pro wrestling is gone. And that's by her own accord. I think that's something that's really beautiful about it, is she is putting this on herself. Nobody else is putting this on her. It's not a stipulation that, the company or an opponent has put on her. She is holding herself to a very, very high standard. So respecting that with every single match that she does, and also respecting her opponents, because we continue to harp on it, Raywald and myself, is that imagine the resume builder that it is for you to retire Mickie James.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's with a lot of different wrestlers throughout time, is that if they can hang their hat on, I retired so-and-so, that's a big, big moment that you can never take away.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that a lot. And with Mickie on her last rodeo, the next person that beats her is going to essentially end it for her. How big is that for that roster? We saw you take a shot at it. We've seen everybody on that roster want to step up. How big of a boost would that be for somebody's career to be the one?
I think that would be career defining. I think if Tasha Steelz says I'm the greatest who beat the greatest, right? She beat Mickie James for the Knockouts World Championship. But I think that that's been game changing for Tasha. It kind of leveled her up a little bit. The person who gets to say I retired Mickie James, what else could you do? Like, what bigger thing is there to do besides win the Knockouts World Championship, which after Hard to Kill you might have the opportunity to do, but you're going to retire her? That in itself is just an amazing feat. So I think that it's made our entire division like work harder and level up and just like, what more can I bring to the table, because I want to be the one.
You were talking about Jordynne Grace a little bit, and last week we had a chance to speak with Jordynne. I did ask Jordynne about potentially standing across the ring from you as the champion, and if she would be willing to end your career for men to hold on to that title. I'd just like to read you a quick little quote of what she said, and I'd just love to get your response to what she had to say.
I got to do what I got to do, right? Like, I mean, she is the one who set this up for herself. It's not going to be my fault if I win the match. Like, she's the one who told the fans that if she loses another match that she'll quit. It's not going to be on me.
Yeah. I don't see a lie in that. And I wouldn't expect anything less from her. She is the champion, and, no one wants to lose the championship. I didn't want to lose the championship. I mean, and I think, if she was willing to let me win out of respect, then I don't feel like that would be a match that myself or the fans would want to see. I mean, there's a reason why I mean, she's having incredible matches, and I think that she represents the company and she represents that championship very well. And she looks like a champion. She goes out there and kicks ass, and she's a very dominant champion. And I love her and I respect her, but it doesn't mean that I don't want to beat her.
I'd love to talk about Mickie a little bit and just how important she's been to your career with all these legendary matches that you guys have had over the last year.
Yeah, I think, I get asked this all the time. Just because Mickie's so like polarizing, right? She's been wrestling 20 plus years. She's done it all. And I think that having someone with that experience, and I was actually talking to her the other day and I said, if you give someone advice or you say, I like this better, or what about this? And we tweak this, like, how could I ever argue that you're wrong? The experience is there and is proof itself that it works. And I can't ever tell you, no, you're wrong, because you've been there, you've done it, you've been successful, you've made money. So having that kind of leader in the locker room, I think for me has been game changing. But I think for everyone in our knockouts division, in our knockouts locker room, can learn something when they're in the ring with Mickie, sitting in the back, just shooting the shit with Mickie, we're all gaining valuable professional and life experience from being around someone like Mickie James. So it's, like I said, been game changing for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Not only just getting that advice backstage, but actually being in the ring with her. What's the biggest takeaway that you've gotten personally from all of your incredible matches with Mickie?
I think that, and again, this is a similar question I get asked a lot. It's just that she's done everything, right? So the important little details of the storytelling that she thinks are like, this is key to what we're doing, has been game changing for me, and it's just changed my mind of what I think is important. And I've really learned how to like hone in on the storytelling and not necessarily think of like what big moves can I do and what is going to get people talking. It's like the story is going to get people talking. The story is what got us to be the first ever Knockouts World Championship pay-per-view main event. The story, not the Mickie DDT, not the Fujiwara armbar. The story and the hatred between the two of us. So I think picking her brain has been the most interesting for me to learn from of what is the best story we can tell and how do we get to what our end goal is, and keep it coherent and allow people to follow along.
And I kind of just want to talk about the last 12 months that you've had, the ups and the downs that you've gone through. And now you're sitting here as the Impact World Champion. Does this title reign mean something a little bit more special to you after the last year that you've had compared to any of the other ones?
It is pretty special. It is pretty dang special. And I say that because I feel like a lot of people thought that Mickie James was done. And I think that, I really didn't get a chance to show what I could be as a champion in the years prior. I was just more, and I lost. So I felt like, it's weird that it would happen, but even in going back to WWE this last time, I almost lost a sense of myself and forgot who I was, and in a sense, and my self-confidence had really started to suffer, and I think that's one of the biggest things, and I'm getting emotional, but one of the biggest things that I'm most grateful for is to have my power back and my confidence back, and that reminder of, Mickie, you're a damn badass, and don't ever let anyone make you think otherwise, because I never felt that way in the locker room. Any locker room I've been in, the girls have always been respectful. And I think the biggest difference in the locker rooms now than 10 years ago, and especially when I first got into wrestling, is that the women are getting into the business to be wrestlers. They're getting into it because they're fans of wrestling, and they're fans of women like myself, like the Beth Phoenixes, like the Litas and the Trish Stratuses, because that was who was on television when they were coming up, just like Sherry was for me, and Luna Vachon and Alundra Blaze, and all these women were for me. We were that inspiring story that those women now who are shining really looked up to. And I was like, well, God, what a great job we all did, because now they're going out there and being able to do so many more things And it's cool because the competition's a lot thicker because they're all training to be wrestlers, you know, instead of just kind of being thrown in that position because they were a valet or whatever the case may be. So, yeah, it's cool. And it's nice to have my power back. It's nice to have my confidence back. It's nice. I've spent a career proving people wrong, and I'm sure that I will spend the rest of it doing just the same, but I like to be right.
Well, there you have it, guys. You know, we've heard from Hall of Famers like Gail Kim. We've heard who some of the top knockouts think should be in the Hall of Fame, including a prediction Mickie James got right with Tracy Brooks going into the Hall of Fame. Really cool just to go back and relive all of that stuff. Stick around. We will be back to our regularly scheduled programming next week. I'm working on my Terry Funk list. I believe that's what we'll be doing. I'm going to be taking a look at the career of Terry Funk, counting down his top 7 moments. Within the next couple of weeks, we are also going to be playing the live podcast that we did with Myung Jae Lee, which I'm very excited about. And yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and wrap it up from there. I'm feeling under the weather, and you know, Mike, love you, buddy. Congratulations on all the success that you and I have done together. I'm very proud of us, very proud of this podcast, and I look forward to continuing to work with Impact Wrestling and bringing you guys some of the best interviews that we can possibly bring you. So thank you to everybody. We really appreciate all the support. Please give us a subscribe. It really helps, especially on the YouTube. We're really pushing those numbers. Really happy with what we've got so far, but we always want to keep growing so we can continue to bring you guys the best content. On behalf of Mike and, of course, Adam, who was a great part of the team as well, guess there's nothing left to say, but you've been counted out. Cheers.